Okay, I think it's the time that we can start our seminar. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 11 English Fast Track Seminar. I'm Murtaza Charkobi, Assistant Professor in the Institute of Education at HSE University of Moscow, Russia. Today, we have a new seminar, a new speaker. I briefly introduce the speaker, who is Dr. Rayna, Sadia, an Assistant Professor at Riphah International University of Islamabad, Pakistan. Dr. Rayna Sadia completed her PhD in psychology in Lingnan University of and also she has been an ambassador and board member of Division 15, if I'm right, so in Asia, by International Association of Applied Psychology, IAAP. Let me tell you that I met her for the first time in a conference in Canada. And after that, we developed our scientific relationship. And then today we invited her to have a presentation for our seminars. The topic of today is school connectedness, an important aspect for the mental well-being of victimized adolescents. Thank you, Rayna, for accepting our invitation. We are very happy to have you today as an invited speaker. So now you can say a few words about yourself, your research interests, and probably about your current paper you're going to speak about today. And then after you can begin your presentation. So microphone is yours and you can start now.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for such a exuberant nice, and I'm privileged to present work of me. That's we did this paper back in 2018, and it took some time to publish this paper. So basically, this paper was about how school connectedness can act as a buffer, how it can be a protective factor among the students who are victimized in their schools as they are in growing age. So we wanted to know what factors can act as protective factors to enhance their mental well-being. So thinking about this point, we took some of the students, and I think that's the point where. So would it be all right if I start my presentation now?
Yes, please. You can share your screen now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Just make it possible. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So the topic of the paper was peer victimization, school connectedness, and mental well-being among adolescents. And, I will present how this way to this positive environment where they are studying for around a day. So how this connection with the school can build as a protective factor and can become a protective factor in enhancing their mental well-being if they are victimized by or bullied by their peers, as we see that a large number of students or adolescents are being victimized across the nations. But this victimization ratio is quite high in Pakistani context and indigenous context. That's why we explored the association between all these variables. So basically, I'll be talking about this content. It will focus on the basic introduction, theoretical framework, what theory we focused on to develop this model, rationale, what was the rationale, why we did this study, and I will briefly discuss methodology and we'll move towards the key findings and discussion. So victimization, as I discussed earlier, is a potential threat to any student for their mental well-being as they spend most of their time at their school. And its victimization is basically a prime intention for the individuals that could harm their mental well-being, as well as it could be linked to bullying, verbal aggression, verbal abuse, or physical aggression as well. So we did the literature review and we found that peer victimization was prevalent across adolescents in Pakistani context. So as I discussed, we wanted to know how school connectedness could act as a buffer so that students can enhance their mental well-being or improve their mental well-being, or they can have less behavioral problems, for instance, anxiety, aggression. Basically, we wanted to know about extra external factors as well as internal factors. For instance, we know that behavioral problems are kind of internalizing behavior problems and externalizing behavior problems. So, in a totality of behavioral problems, how school connectedness could act in decreasing these behavior problems among adolescents. We use a theoretical framework of self-determination theory as the three basic components of school self-determination theory: relatedness, competence, and autonomy provide a sense of security to the child as well as a sense of connectedness with the environment they are being studied. So this theory provided a framework through which we can study our model, where school connectedness is a mediator between peer victimization and mental well-being of adolescents. So among Pakistani sixth grade students, 94% of the boys reported victimization and 85% of the girls reported victimization. And we also observed that school connectedness enhances their motivation, their self-regulation, their academic performance. And as I discussed earlier, school connectedness actually reduces their behavior problems as well. So keeping this framework and the rationale in mind, we wanted to now know in reality affects mental well-being and how it's affecting the mental well-being in relation to the indigenous context of Pakistan, where most of the girls are going to school, and in the rural areas as well as in public sector and private sector. It is pertinent to mention that in Pakistan, around 16% of the population has facility or the opportunity to go to school and studying in school, and among them around 6% of the population actually gets higher education. So considering this statistics, it was very pertinent to understand what are the factors that actually motivate them or that could enhance their mental well-being, or that could actually protect them from the victimization they're being facing they in the schools, in the environment they are studying or in their schools. So indigenous literature also identified that among these 16% of the population, literature identified that they are being victimized by their peers. So if you can imagine that if a very less number of a country or a situation or an person of all higher rate of individuals are being victimized by their peers. So their mental well-being is very at stake, and we need to study it, and we need to study with reference to protective factors or the factors through which they can feel protective, they can feel the way they can grow mentally as well as physically. So they need a peaceful environment. Where comes school connectedness? Therefore, we checked as how this association worked through school connectedness. We hypothesized a negative association between peer victimization, school connectedness, and mental well-being among adolescents. And we hypothesized that school connectedness would mediate the association between peer victimization and mental well-being among adolescents. Similarly, further, as we took around 28.2% of the population from public schools and 83 or 82% from private schools. So that's why we wanted to know whether this association, this factor of the educational status, educational institute status could affect the individual's connectedness as well as peer victimization, as it has been observed that adolescents who are studying in public schools are victimized more or as compared to those students who are studying in private schools. So with this framework in mind and with this hypothesis in mind, we studied we took the sample from public and private schools of the Rawalpindi, which is adjacent to the capital of Pakistan, Islamabad. We took around 400 participants. Among them, 245 were boys and 155 were girls. The age range was 14 to 19 years with a mean of 16.16 and 1.86 standard deviation. In order to assess the association, we took dimensional peer victimization scale, which has a reliability of 0.84 and which has actually 4 subscales. Correlation association between all these variables with reference to the subscales of multidimensional peer victimization scale. We took, and the second one was school connectedness scale, which was used to assess school connectedness of the adolescents, and it has a good reliability as well of 0.79. Similarly, we used mental well-being scale to assess well-being of adolescents, which has also a very good psychometric property with 0.80 reliability. So the key findings were we observed negative association between peer victimization, all scales of peer victimization, including physical, verbal, and social, as well as threatening the property. So we observed negative association of all the subscales, including the composite score of peer victimization with both school connectedness and mental well-being. However, school connectedness and mental well-being had a positive association. That means individuals who had higher school connectedness would have higher mental well-being, would have good mental well-being, and they were well connected to the school, to their environment or their peers. Similarly, after linear regression, we observed that peer victimization negatively predicted mental well-being, and school connectedness mediated the association between peer victimization and mental well-being. So, in totality, all of these hypotheses were observed. All of these hypotheses were accepted, and we observed significant differences across social manipulation, which was one of the scale of peer victimization for both gender as well as school state, private and public school. So moving towards, if we know that all these hypotheses were accepted in the Pakistani society and which was according to the literature, so what does it mean for the Pakistani society or for the adolescents who are studying in Pakistani private and public schools? And with reference to that 16% quotient of the population who are studying in schools. So 16% is the quotient of overall population. So let's shrink it to adolescents who are studying in schools and to those who are actually being victimized by their peers, which means that if that's a huge ratio to consider, and considering that they have very minimum resources to go to school, if this victimization leads to negative feelings, that means less number of students will come to school, which will ultimately impact the economy or community as well. So our stance was to how can the public policy be pointed towards this particular topic and this particular incident or this particular status where adolescents can go to school and they can enhance their mental well-being, and they should be get motive. They should get this right of education, though that's very true. But to what extent we can make them stick to what they are studying and they should go to the schools. So as the literature also pointed out, that peer victimization had negative association between mental well-being school connectedness. So, but the association, where this association could be reversed through school connectedness, that means we need to work on the environment where they are studying. If they have a close association with their school, if they have a positive association with their school, if they know their environment, if they are studying in a protective environment, if they are studying where they can feel connected, where they know that if they go to school, there will be people around, there will be their peers, there will be their teachers, and the the peer victimization might not affect their attendance to school. So that means that if they have this feeling of belongingness at school, it could provide them a buffering factor, or it can provide them it could well-being and physical well-being as well. So we observed that girls had higher connectedness as compared to boys, but our findings revealed that boys reported high level of connectedness with academic institution in comparison to girls. So that was a kind of different finding from the literature, where girls had more connectedness with their school or with their physical environment as compared to boys. That means that overt expression of victimization, expression of victimization, they can detect the physical aspect in it. But if it's overt expression, manipulation is less likely to get noticed. They would know that school authorities or the higher authorities won't be able to detect this manipulation. So, and literature also supported that girls had more more tendency to indulge in social manipulation as compared to boys. So we can say that if the girls had higher school connectedness, that means they could hide the victimization, or either it's overt or covert expression of victimization. The study further revealed non-significant differences for peer victimization across school status. That we are talking private sector. So that means public and private sector, we couldn't find any significant differences across peer victimization for both students of these two private and public sector students. And the only significant differences were apparent on social manipulation, which was the subscale of peer victimization. So this evidence of high level of social manipulation in public sector in comparison to private sector highlights the fact that we need a proper proactive strategy for dealing with overt forms of peer victimization. We do know that if it's a covert form of manipulation, we know that however it can be minimized. But if it's a proper representation of manipulation, or if it's a proper representation of victimization, we need proper strategies to deal with these form of victimization. Though we stress that we need strategies to actually cater this victimization, either it's overt form or covert form. But with reference to these particular differences, we need to find strategies to examine if these particular overt strategies are present among girls as compared to boys. So these were kind of implications of this discussion, and these were just a brief introduction to what we have done and what we wanted to know, and how it can actually affect the and what it actually could mean for the students among Pakistani students. But now the question is where we can apply these studies, and what can be the implications of these proper study, and where we can apply the findings of our studies. So if we inculcate a sense of connectedness among students, it can help them deal effectively with victimization. That's a very known fact, and we have established it through number of scientific studies and scientific papers. But what could it mean for the Pakistani sample? That means the psychology research is not only just for the paper publication and everything. That means we need to provide a proper public policy where proper training sessions, proper awareness programs could be launched for those students who are actually being victimized in their schools. Proper training sessions, proper awareness sessions, proper engaging sessions could be launched by schools in particular areas where girls are less in number and boys are more, or where we have this Islamic perspective where we don't have, sometimes in the rural areas, we don't have co-ed, that means boys and girls studying in the same school. That means we have in the rural areas, we have a separate school for boys and separate school for girls. So in those schools where they are studying separately, boys are victimized higher as compared to girls. So that means those schools where the boys are studying separately, we need to provide proper counseling sessions, proper weekly sessions for those individuals where they can discuss their issues and where they can feel connected to their peers, to their teachers. They can discuss their issues so that even if they are having this, they are being victimized, they could get over this victimization. So that means through this model, through relatedness, through connectedness, or through a sense of autonomy, they can have their mental well-being, they can increase their or enhance their mental well-being. However, this study was not only that we can say that it has all the implications, and it's not, it does have its limitations. The very first one was that we took data only from the Rawalpindi district, and Pakistan has around 4 different provinces, and each different province has its own unique characteristics. And we only took data from Rawalpindi because of the availability of schools, and they don't allow the students to get data from students. So that's why that was one of the limitation of the data access to adolescents. And the second limitation was all the questionnaires were in English. So it was kind of a bit difficult to make them understand what we are trying to say, especially in public schools, where the English language actually starts at A levels or O levels. So it was kind of difficult. So we can say that generalizability of the findings could be an issue, where in the rural areas or in the other provinces as well. So it reduces the external validity. So we can hope that this future studies could take data from, could take representation of all provinces, or it can take representation of public and private schools from major cities as well as from the rural areas. So it was a baseline for the studies, where we provided a sense of connectedness to the students, and through which they could enhance their mental well-being, even though they were or they are being victimized by their peers. It can be verbal aggression, it can be social manipulation, or it can be a physical aggression type of bullying. That's all. I'm looking forward to all the questions and suggestions if you have any.
Well, thank you, Rayna, for sharing the interesting finding with our audiences. So we are very happy again to see your finding. I think now is the time for question and answer. So normally we have a couple of ways, to ask ask their question. The first way is to turn on your camera, or the second way is just to, type your question in chat or pass it to me or Julia, and then we can ask on your behalf.
Hello, I have a question, but I'm not able to turn on my camera.
That's fine. Please go on, Maddox. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Rayna. My name is Maddox Farsi. Thank you very much for your interesting research and presentation.
Thank you for listening and bearing with the findings.
I really enjoyed it. I have a question, maybe in 2 parts. There is a 2-part in my question. It was very interesting. First, you reported a very high percentage of peer victimization. As I remember, around 90% for boys and girls. And my question back to you studied the peer victimization. Did you consider the factor of victimization from outside the school, like, for example, in society or in family? Because usually as far as I know, there is a high correlation between these two factors, or these kind of students can be victimized by, can be assaulted by outside because of their personality. Second part is part of question back to, can this result of that you told about the being connected be generalized to the victim, the victims from outside the school, not peer victimized?
Yeah, thank you.
I think,
so much.
Rayna, thank you. For the second part, I think Maddox was referring to crossover effect, you know, yeah, just to complete it. Thank you, Maddox, for the question. We listen to Rayna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matic. That's a really interesting question, and I would like to answer it with reference to when you said that peer victimized, because we did not measure victimization in sense of victimization. We measured peer victimization. So peer victimization refers to all those students who are studying in a school and their school fellows. Yeah, your question is quite valid, that outside factors, like let's say if they are being victimized across the school, across other variables, let's say if they are being victimized from their schools, from their tuition centers, when they go, where they go after their school, they can be victimized in the playgrounds. Yes, you are right, but this question here actually assessed peer victimization within the school. And there were other there were the subscales where they were asked about their physical victimization, they were asked about social manipulation, about verbal victimization, and attack on property. Let's say if they have a pencil box, let's say if they have their bag. So this question actually asked about what victimization they are being faced at the school, rather than victimization they are facing outside their campuses. Yes, that's a very valid question, and we didn't actually measure it, and it could affect the association between peer victimization and the mental well-being. But I guess that's a drawback of social science research, right? We cannot be 100% sure that these are the factors that could actually. Let me tell you the exact variance of this model. The exact variance of this model was around 15%. So that means 15% school connectedness, peer victimization, and school connectedness and peer victimization actually predicted mental well-being. That means what about other 75%? This could be one of the reason, and that affected their mental well-being as well. But we left it for the future researchers, and the researchers like you to explore it.
Right. So, I mean, thank you. And I mean, regarding the second part of the question is about crossover, which is actually was my question too. So, I mean, do you think that people, or let's say students that are victimized, they can transfer, they can pass this effect from the school, for example, to their sister, younger sister, or younger brother, or family members, or not? Is that possible or not? What do you think? I mean, your personal opinion. I mean, if you don't have any evidence.
I mean, I personally believe that it depends. It depends on many factors as well. Let's say we talk about bullying. When we talk about bullying, we say that the students who are bullying, in the person who is bullying it in one situation, he can be a victim in another situation, right? So he, in order to overcome this victim situation, they bully their peers or they bully their friends at the schools. That's what we talk about. So it can be a factor.
Right. Maddox, is that okay, the answer, or do you want to have further question?
Yeah, thank you. It was very interesting research, and I got.
Yeah, thank you, Maddox. Okay, so I myself have actually a couple of questions. I mean, they are simple questions. Just is about I want to have some example of peer victimized behaviors, because you presented. I mean, about the items you spoke about the scale, but you didn't give us like practical lessons. That could one I want. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So let's just say we were talking about peer victimization, right? So in schools, there actually let me just give you an example through the subscales of this questionnaire. So it has 4 subscales: attack on property, physical victimization, social manipulation, and verbal victimization. So at school, we have this in schools when some of your peers call you names, right? So it is a form of it is but being victimized by some with reference to your caste. We have this caste culture. So
It's like with ironic words. Okay. Okay, I can hear you now. Back,
okay.
yeah. And the second part was about the difference between school connectedness and school engagement. I remember in 2000, I think 15 or 16, I conducted a study with my Italian colleagues about the school engagement, and we repeated in also Russia. So I'm wondering, is there any difference, or could you just help us to between school connectedness and school engagement? Thank you.
So I guess engagement is when you get some activities to engage in school at school, but school connectedness is where you feel belongingness at your school. Let's say let me just give you an example where you can have a personal association. You the vicinity of the environment. It can be your teachers, it can be your peers, it can be the syllabus, or it can be what you are doing at the particular school. But school engagement is rather with your engagement at the school, what you're doing at particularly at the school.
Right. Okay, got it. Because yeah, that's true. Because also in school engagement, we have 3 components like behavioral engagement and affective engagement and so on. But belongingness, I think, is the key difference. And probably the last question just came to my mind. I mean, how do you see your finding in comparison with the world statistics? So if you want to compare per victimized, I mean, rate in Pakistan, and let's say in comparison with Europe or those countries that have some studies on this. So how do you compare? Yeah, just I want to some general
I would
idea.
say it's not that much high in Pakistan. Am I audible?
Yes, yes. I return back. Yeah, your voice. Could you continue, please? Yes.
So, I would say that it's not that much high, and it's really not that much high. But with reference to the population that is going to the schools, right? If there is a very less number of students there who are going to school, and in addition to that, if they're being victimized, their motivation to go to school would be reduced, which in return would ultimately affect the economy or any country, right?
Yeah, it
This
seems
is
to be like a hidden phenomenon. I mean, it's something
true.
that you
Yeah.
cannot observe it. Yeah, it's something that should be reported by a student, but maybe they don't want to share it because of their own reason. Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you for the answer. So it seems we wait for 15 seconds. If there is no further question, then we close the seminar again. Yes, please.
Sorry, I have a very small question.
Yes, Maddox.
You reported that the school connectedness is higher among the students in private school compared to government school. What do you think could be the factors of that? What can be affected?
Right. So let me. That's a very interesting finding, though. But with reference to indigenous factor, that the private schools are actually expensive. They have better educational opportunities. They have better learning opportunities for students. Let me just give you an example. In private schools, they are offered different languages. They are offered different instruments. They are being offered to appear in Cambridge exams, but that's the lacking in private schools. They are sometimes it's lacking in public schools. Sometimes in public schools they don't even have the proper infrastructure. Even in the COVID times, they didn't have the proper infrastructure, proper gadgets to learn. So the schools were closed all across Pakistan. All the public schools were closed all across the Pakistan because students couldn't afford to go to school. They didn't have the mayors to go to school. And that's where the private schools come. They had this opportunity to provide the students with division of classes. They had the manpower to do that. So students feel connected in private schools as compared to public schools because of the opportunities they are providing, because of the course they are providing, and teaching opportunities they are and teaching and the learning opportunities they are providing to their students as compared to public schools.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. I think this is the time that I have to close the seminar. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone that attended this seminar and providing Rayna with questions and also with constructive comments. So thank you everybody. And also on behalf of the Institute of Education at HSE University, I would like to say thank you, Rayna, for again accepting our invitation and having this interesting seminar and sharing with us. See you in next upcoming seminars. I wish you a very good day and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.